need to see if we can find these buttons. Too many groups for me. Seniors. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the UK session of Trader Talk Radio, Daybreak Europe, we like to call it. And welcome to you and welcome to Jeff as well. How you doing, buddy?
Cheers, mate. Going okay. We've got a little trade I'm placing at the moment.
Oh, okay. Let's hop straight to you. Yeah, because the FTSE is not tradable right now. We can hop to the analysis of that in a bit. So This is why we are here. So let's hop straight over to you, mate.
Just hang on 2 secs and I'll clear the screen. Get rid of my pornography off here.
I'm gonna leave that on.
All right, happy days. All right, let's take a look. I go here and then I go here and select the screen. I'm getting used to this, Ash. It's no good.
Yeah.
And share away. All right, it's Aussie yen. And we're playing a short underneath this bar here. It's only a very small bar. But I'm playing this in two ways. I've got an entry, or I've got two entries underneath it, actually, as you can see over here. One is going to close at the weekly pivot, if we get there. The other will just be traded as I haven't quite decided if I'm going to move my stops to entry or not. Maybe not, because if this gets the weekly pivot, I'll probably be in a no-lose situation. So I might just give it the space it probably deserves, because we've now gone into a tighter range than we've actually been in. You can see here that we've been capped by around about the 75.27 mark or something like that for the last 3 days, and we can't seem to get through that level. I'm considering that we're going to test the bottom of this level, but what happens thereafter, I'm not 100% sure. That's why I'm actually taking this in two sections, because I'm happy just to take my profit here at the weekly pivot, but I'm also happy to let this run in case it does reverse off a triple top, lower high, equal lower high. In fact, we've got three equal lower highs, if you like. So we've got a triple top followed by a triple top. That's kind of weird, but it's there. And to me, it smells of a test of the bottom of this range. So that's why I'm taking profit here. On one trade, I'll just close the trade completely. And on the other, as I said, I'll let this run. I haven't quite decided whether I'll take anything off the table at the bottom of this range just yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. We will see. Of course, we've got to get taken into the trade and get to weekly pivot first. That's our first port of call. That'll be about a 1-to-1 trade if we get there, I think. Entry there and stop there. As I said, it's very tight. It's just about 10 pips and not quite 1-to-1 by the time we get there. It's about 0.8 to 1 on that position. So that's it. If you want to know the entry levels that I've used, 74.05 is my entry for both trades, and the stop loss on the first position, the tighter stop loss, is above that candle, as I said, rounded up, 74.14. Actually, I think I used 74.15, making it a 10 pip. Yeah, 74.15 is the stop loss on the first position. Stop loss on the second position, actually, it needs to be a little bit looser. The stop loss should be above that bar there, and therefore at 74, let's call it 74.30 is where my stop loss should be. I will fix that in due course. So there you go, mate. Aussie yen short, and hopefully we can get a bit of action in the market. Its propensity is to go sideways at the moment, and there's reason for that. How about FTSE?
Oh, mate, completely different. Yes, it's certainly a propensity to sell off. Um, Amazing moves overnight, which I've got to be completely frank, I haven't caught up on the reasons for this as yet, and
Yeah, nor have I. I was looking at that this morning. I was like, hello, something's happened.
yeah, and and I've been listening to the news. I've been doing as much kind of plugging around as I can, but I haven't, and maybe somebody out there will have an idea of why the FTSE is selling off. Where is my Oh, I don't seem to have my camera in today. Let me just put my camera in. Here we go. See if it's any
Well, I
better.
haven't done that either, but that's probably a blessing.
Oh, doesn't seem to want to work this morning. Well, you're probably right, mate. It's probably a blessing. Maybe there's something in that. Unless I need to hit that. Oh, I know why. I know why. There we go. There we go. Right. So, yes, the FTSE has had a huge sell-off, and my hope was, as we took a trade to the downside. So, interesting move yesterday. So, I'm cutting myself up. Interesting move yesterday because what I was looking for was a pop and drop, and the pop extended beyond the daily pivot, but it didn't. It did find itself some resistance up here, and then it did drop. Now, that is not what I would call a pop and drop, because a pop and drop, I'm really looking for it to do exactly that. Pop means just go up there for a little while and then just fall. But this kind of hung around for a little while, making it a little bit trickier. And I have to be honest, my thinking was, when I saw this kind of pop up there, come back down, hold on, even cling to this lower trend line, my thinking was, we were likely to get price action that was going to be just stuck in this range until Jerome Powell. Now, we can see that there's a huge gap to the downside. Well, let's not call it a huge gap. There's a gap to the downside, which has obviously come off a knee-jerk reaction, and I'm going to have to get in amongst that. I've got a theory of why that's happened, and we'll discuss that in a moment. But I haven't really got to the bottom of it just yet. Now, that does mean that today this is going to be a tricky market, because where I don't mind if I'm in a buy zone going counter trend, don't mind that at all. So this would be a counter trend trade, if you like, not longer term, but on a medium to intraday sort of time period. This would be a counter trend trade. I'm not adverse to that because of the gap. And not only the gap, which is just around about the weekly pivot. It's a perfect place to be looking for this market to kind of get sucked back into. But what I'd quite like to do, as opposed to that, is get the price action back to the upside and then sell it off. The problem now is that Jerome Powell is hours away. So, my question is, does the market sell off into Jerome Powell's speech, before Jerome Powell's speech? And if it does that, I do kind of want in, and I'll then want the speech to see if it can carry a little bit further to the downside, because it's looking good on a longer term viewpoint of the FTSE 100. Now I'm going to bring you a longer term chart. So this is the monthly.
Bit of chat around the place. I noticed that there's a bit of discord amongst the Fed members.
Okay.
And the betting, as it were, has gone from a 95% chance of a interest rate cut down to 61.
Yeah. I heard that as well, mate. I heard that as well. So is that what we're going to kind of pin this on, do you think? Are we pinning it on the fact that maybe that there's that discourse in the Discord in the Fed is the reason that we're starting to see the FTSE 100 sell off? Let's just check the S&P, because if that was the case, then that surely should have filtered through to this as well, right?
Yeah. Look, to be fair, that's paper talk, as I call it. It's come from a press release or somebody's noticed this or spoken or whatever. So, to me, it's rumor. It's not fact. So
look at that, though, mate.
I couldn't be putting too much into it, I don't think.
This is what I prefer.
If they don't cut interest rate.
This would have been better for us. If this pattern had emerged on the FTSE, the fact that it's broken down is a problem. because this does look a lot more like traders are setting up to sell it off after the rate decision has happened, because they probably are in the same maybe opinion that you are about the fact that there is, we're not the same opinion. Maybe they heard the same thing as you have, that there is this this discord going on, and this is likely to sell off, and this is no doubt that this is a distribution pattern. There's our head, there's our left shoulder, and there's our right shoulder just kind of forming. So, we have got the typical kind of head and shoulders pattern kind of coming up here, and it's just whether it's it breaks down from this point before the Fed and hits some sort of neckline, or whether it kind of meanders up here and it just all happens in one hit. But looking at that, you certainly wouldn't be buying the S&P over the course of its the two next trading periods, i.e. the European trading period and the US trading period. But does it just meander up here and basically give us nothing to kind of go on? So interesting, really, that the S&P hasn't done the same as the FTSE. It's not really giving us the same in as much that there's a sell-off going on. It's just giving us a distribution pattern. Now, this is the FTSE on the weekly chart, which I think is the telling one. And I think it's the same sort of thing that we're looking at here. We are also looking at why haven't I got that now? Where's my drawer? My drawing tool's gone for some reason. No problem. Okay. All right, no worries. I will do it with a little spotlighter. So this here would be our our left shoulder, and there's our head, and here's our right shoulder, and there's a neckline somewhere along here. So we've got something similar, but on a much wider kind of pattern. So there is a chance that the FTSE 100 is looking at something longer term that is going to drag it to the downside. And this is, as I say, is a weekly chart. It could be a day early. We might still see some meandering around because it's such a long-term time frame. But this does look ominous for traders, for bullish traders in the FTSE. My personal preference would be to allow that Fed release to come out and then trade it, because if this is a weekly chart, then we have time. It would suggest that we have time, as long as it just doesn't just absolutely collapse. But what we are seeing is the filtering through of news and data from some of these exporting economies, i.e. China and Germany, that is dragging the FTSE 100 lower. In my opinion, the numbers don't look good, and the question is there anything that the ECB and the Fed, and to a lesser degree the Bank of England, can do to kind of rescue the price action and keep the price action moving in a positive direction? So I'd like to see what the reaction is from the Fed, and maybe it's going to come down to you touching on that 60% chance of a rate cut. I think some of the problem, and this is the interesting thing, I think some of the reason the FTSE 100 is moving in the way that it's moving is down to oil. And the only thing that kind of destroys that theory a little bit is what's happening to the S&P, because what we've seen with oil is, and you touched on it yesterday, it's only 5%. And the market agreed with you in the end.
It looks that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly did. It certainly does. It started to sell off. But what was interesting about this move with oil was, what do you do as a trader looking at an indice, forgetting single stocks? What do you do when you look at an indice? Do you trade it to the upside because those oil shares are big players in the indice? Like the FTSE 100 has BP. For example, it's a big player. It makes up quite a large part of the FTSE 100. So do you trade that long because of that? Or do you look at it just before a Fed rate cut and go, if the price of oil is going up, that is going to put some pressure on pricing, and it's going to put some inflationary pressure on. And inflationary pressure cannot be solved by weakening your currency. So that may well have been.
Ask any central banker over the past 3 years. Yes.
Yeah, but the price of oil is significant, isn't it? I mean, that does actually put some inflationary pressure on an economy. The issue, as I say, but the S&P, if the S&P had weakened as well, I would have gone almost 100% on that theory being the reason that we've seen the FTSE 100 sell off. But because that hasn't been the case, then it makes that a difficult case to make. Maybe the fact that America are an exporting nation of oil these days, maybe that's what omits them from the argument somewhat. Or maybe we're not really looking at that story at all. Maybe we're looking at something a lot more kind of pan-European, So as I say, that the German manufacturing numbers, car sales and all sorts of things have just been pretty poor. So we have to bring in things like the DAX. Now, this is the DAX. This is the German indice. And again, look at the gap with a DAX. Why these have come in so small? You can see that, okay? Can you, Jeff? Yeah. So we got this gap as well with the DAX. Now we have to bring in the CAC on as well, just for some final bits and balance. Same thing. So this looks now to me like it's a European issue and a European story. So that is starting to filter in. So what that's suggesting is that we really need to be fully aware of the numbers coming out of Europe if we are going to make any kind of success out of trading the FTSE and the CAC and the DAX on a morning like this. And look what's happening to the price action now. It's a counter trend trade, but it is getting sucked back, as I said, that it was likely to do so into the weekly pivot. And is likely to touch that. The question is, does it collapse from that point? And as I said, my preference has to be to wait for the Fed. I can't trade this really before that happens, because if this does get sucked back into this area, does this just become some kind of false gap breakout, or does it become something more sinister? I do suspect we're going to find some resistance here, but my real suspicion is that we probably will pop ourselves to the upside. I wish I could get the pen back, but I can't seem to find it anymore. Where are you, pen? Select that, draw. Let's see if this works. Yeah, so that's why I think we're probably likely to pop to the upside and then pop down, but I wonder whether we find some kind of support level along here and then we pop back up again. So it's a tricky one, and and one of many things can happen here. But if we do get up here, then a drift to the downside and then maybe getting back into the range would probably be my suspected preference. And actual fact, this may not happen. The last little bit may not happen, but something of the like, I think, is much more likely to happen than not, because markets don't tend to break down. They do, it does happen, but they don't tend to break down before such huge events like the Fed. It's just very unlikely. I'm just trying to see whether there's another pattern out there, and it could be that one. Could be that this is we got some sort of channel going on here. So maybe we got some broader kind of picture that hasn't been considered. And the reason for that is because of this lower trend line, which I can draw on the 4-hour instead. So a few different kind of permutations here, mate, and it will make trading a little bit more tricky. So for this reason, I'm out, as they would say on Dragon's Den.
Yeah, indeed. I haven't seen Dragon's Den for yonks,
Oh, so I love that show.
Still going, I assume.
Yeah, and my favourite things on Dragon's Den is when they invent something rather than when they kind of come in and they've managed to discover a different product and they've made a different business
spin on something different.
Yeah. Or they've come up with a food in a jar or something, or crisps. I'm not really into all that. I like it when they invent something. and it can be anything. You know, when they just kind of like you know, get a bit of plastic and wrap it around some wires and say that you know, it's all of a sudden build a safe thing. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Look, it's no surprise. You know, today is one of those days, and it happens every 6 weeks, where the world, and it depends, of course, on, you know, where we are in terms of interest rate cycles, I suppose. But this one's particularly interesting because we have this. It's almost a race to the bottom. Everyone's calling it that. Yet, somewhere along the line, the smarties are starting now to think, well, if we all go to zero, what's left and who wins? And there's no answer to that question. It really is okay. Once we get there, what is left? What is left? I mean, the government can step in and act fiscally. But, you know, unless these economies start to fire up, we're just going to continue to do this. And why haven't they learned by now that it's really not having too much of an effect?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you know, as we always point out, where do people put their money? And the stock market isn't necessarily going up because it is resilient and you know, businesses are booming. It's just that there's nowhere else to kind of get any kind of yield or return. So the stock markets go up. You know, it's going to go. They're going to go up by default, really. But they are in all sorts of. You know, the markets and the currencies are in all sorts of trouble. You only have to look at the pound to see that. But this seems to be the new normal, doesn't it? You know, low interest rates. You know, how long will we be here for? We thought it would have changed by now. We thought that the normal was to have interest rates at around 3% and above, but it doesn't seem to be the case.
Case in point.
Yeah.
Look at the euro.
Yeah.
You know, they cut interest rates, yet the euro rallied.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, and again, it rallied yesterday.
How often has that happened in history?
Yeah.
Not too often. You know?
Yeah, absolutely right.
So what the heck? We are playing in a different ball game, I believe.
Well, we got some. No, we did discuss actually yesterday that the German ZEW numbers would be something of interest, and actually that they came in okay, didn't they? Which meant
we also said the euro was a buy yesterday, so you know, we weren't wrong.
Yes, very, very, very true, and it did bounce quite nicely. When we kind of look at this, and this might be something of interest. I'll tell you what, I had a lot of problems with my mouse. It just doesn't seem to want to grab anything properly. I think I need a new one. This is what we had. So we had the German
$5.98 at Officeworks here, mate.
yeah. I just need to remember to get one. It's just not the first thing on my mind when I go out, really. But I suppose I just I should just do it on Amazon. You know, I played football last night and something pinged in my leg that I've never felt ping before, and I'm in a lot of pain. I mean,
what? That's not good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a muscle that I didn't know existed, and you know, and certainly not playing football. I thought it was just the muscles at the front of your leg and at the back of your leg, but something around the side has gone, and it's making it very uncomfortable just to sit down.
So what sort of, that's a social game of football, is it?
Yeah, just a kind of no, nothing serious, mate. It was kind of sociable, but it has to be said that there's different guys turn up each week. It's like a meetup group, so you pay your money and go and use this 7-a-side pitch, and it's different guys each week, and the guys yesterday were quite physical. You don't normally have guys that are so physical. People are a little bit more like laid back, and they give you time on the ball. But these guys are quite physical.
They got a bit serious.
They did, yeah. It did. It was getting a bit tasty. And initially, I was just kind of like, "Hold on a minute, this is meant to be relaxed." But after a while, I was like, "This is actually going to be quite a lot of fun," because you know you've got kind of like people that are physical, and not because they're trying to be aggressive. That's just how they play. But the ones that are physical tend to make decisions quicker. They tend to be a little bit more aggressive in their decision making, which means that you can usually wait for them to make a decision and then just skip past them a little bit.
They're competitors, mate.
Yeah. They really are. But fun to play against. But I don't know whether that kind of extra physicality has affected the way that I ran, or I don't know what it was, or if I was tense, but I had to stop around about 40 minutes in to an hour-long game and come home just because I was in so much pain, and it's getting me every time it moves. But anyway, that's not going to affect the footsie. So it affects football, but not the footsie. So let's have a look at some of the numbers. So the numbers from Germany were pretty good, and we'll have a look at the effect on that in a moment. But this is what we got this morning. CPI from the UK. Now that is always an interesting indicator for the UK, and I've seen that the pound dollar, after being completely in the doldrums, has been flying really, ever since then. So let's have a quick look at that in a moment. And we've also got final CPI from the Eurozone, Italian trade balance, all coming in at yellow. So maybe nothing significant there. And obviously the big one later on from the Fed, when it comes down to a Thursday. Now, this is why I think your trade is quite interesting, and I don't know whether you looked into this at all, but we got a slew of data now from the Asia side of the world, Asian side of the world. We got Australian numbers tomorrow, or overnight really, for us, very, very early in the morning. Japan has a release, and then we're back into the pound. Then we go back to monetary policy from the pound. Unlikely to change interest rates. So the story from the pound will probably not come from that. And that's pretty much it.
Just before you go on, how interesting that the yen has been downgraded. Their interest rate announcement has been downgraded to not important. That can't be right. What's going on
there? Who downgraded that? Was that Moody's?
Well, I just saw your screen.
Sorry. Okay. Okay, let's have a look.
Your Forex factory for tomorrow.
Monetary policy statement is red. Oh, and I see what you're saying. Yeah, the
Where is it again?
It's that one, isn't it? So
okay, so it's only the rate announcement. Okay, it's not the statement. The statement is the big thing. Okay, that's all.
The statement, yeah, but also maybe this is the significant thing here. Oh, I see. That the event will be listed as tentative until the statement is issued. Oh, okay. So it's tentative, so we don't know what time it's on. Okay. Yeah, no, that is a little strange. You're right, though, because everybody else's policy rate is a red folder.
Yeah, it's a bit of a thing. I noticed this actually a few months ago. They've actually downgraded most of the rate calls,
okay,
and put the emphasis on the statement. That's pretty much all that's all about.
Okay. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at the back to. Okay, so this is what we got from the euro yesterday. Now, remember we said that the ZEW numbers were going to be quite key and quite important, and they were out and released at 10 o'clock UK time, which is 12 o'clock MT4 time. So we come to 12 o'clock, and it's this bar here. And from there, we get a decent rally to the upside from the euro.
Was, eh? Okay.
Yes, I think so. I think that probably did help things out a little bit, which doesn't suggest that we get a further boost to the upside. It's just strange moves from the euro. Strange things are.
Look at that chart. I mean, it's all over the place like a mad woman's breakfast.
Yeah, it really is. Except for the monthly pivot seems to be playing a huge role here. A rejection here, coming up, rejected, through, bounce, through, rejected to a degree, and maybe a false break there. But the monthly pivot is playing an interesting part in as much that we probably need to take that out before we can say that we are bullish on the euro and significantly take it out. I know it's taken it out before, but it did actually come back again. But the monthly pivot to me looks like a potential area of interest now. So maybe
there is a confluence there, and that's the area I was flagging yesterday.
Yeah,
as a get out point, and now we wait and see.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe squeezed into this over the course of well, it's not going to have long, but maybe over the course of the day, and then we see if we can actually give us a decent move to the upside, or the downside. Let's just do a quick measurement on it as well. Well, upside is going to leave us somewhere around about the 1.1230 area, which we'll come to in a moment. And the downside is going to be somewhere around there. So if I bring this on a daily chart,
I've just closed the first part of that trade. That, as I said, I would. It's hit the weekly pivot, so that's a winner.
Oh, which one are we talking about?
Aussie yen.
Aussie yen. We already got triggered in, did we?
Yeah. Well, we've hit the weekly pivot. So
can we have a look?
That part of the trade's closed. Yep.
Oh, let's have a look, mate. Let's have a quick look. And actually, while we're on, while you're on, I don't know if you want to have a quick look at the pound as well. I mean, the pound is
sure.
is in focus today because of that CPI data.
Okay, so just repeating what we did, we entered here, put our stop here.
Oh, lovely.
And we've closed the trade here.
Oh, that is a cracker. Look at that, live on air. You see what we provide you?
There you go. There is another part of that, though. I've taken a second trade on Aussie yen, and I've got my stop up here. And I think I'll leave it there for now. I'll wait and see what happens if and when we hit this support level, this second support level. And if that's the case, I'll probably do one of two things. I might move my stops to entry. In fact, that's probably what I will do, although they're not protected by anything except the weekly pivot. I'll see what happens. I'll call that when the time comes. But at the moment, I think we're pretty much in a no-lose situation because we've taken that first 80%. So that's all cool.
Well done, mate. Well done. Great start to a Wednesday.
And answering your question, which did I think about the fact that we've got Aussie news and Japan news? Absolutely, I thought about it. And that's why I've taken two positions here. One, I wanted to get some money in the bank, which we've done. And two, I want to leave this open so that we may get a free ride. And I'm extremely bearish this cross, as you knew. So I think I've just done exactly what I wanted to do. I'm now in the trade pretty much for free. And if it goes, 200 pips to the downside, we'll do very well out of it. If not,
that is fantastic.
We haven't done too much damage, so that's all good. In fact, we've done no damage.
You've done no damage, and now you've got yourself in a lovely position. We've got an Aussie yen, which is looking pretty overbought as well. By all accounts, it looks like it's in a potential, bit of a stressful area. And when I look at that on a weekly chart as well, and see that little inside bar, that in itself could provide some indication of where this may lead now, and also, the price at 74.25 is a definite resistance point. That's just come back to market structure, decent place to try and take a trade to the downside. So this has got a decent shout, isn't it, mate? And God, that could go. Who knows where that could go? I suppose back to the tweezer bottom, but I think the fact that it's overreached itself gives a fairly decent chance that this could really start to drop.
Yeah, good. Look, it's a pretty ballsy play, to be fair. I mean, they're almost 3 white knights there, and it's a massive counter momentum trade. But if you look at the chart, it's just trading with the trend. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And we're at a support resistance level. So
Absolutely.
and overextended. So it just made sense to me. And there's double news coming out tomorrow. So yep,
Love it.
happy to be in the position. I hope we can hang on.
Love it. Very good, mate. Okay, so that is the Aussie yen. Now, what we're
You
saying
want to
about
talk about cable, yeah?
I wouldn't mind a quick chat about cable before we shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, look, very, very interesting and tough, I've got to say. Yesterday, I said there's a buying opportunity here, but I thought the best buying opportunity would be down here. Turns out they didn't give us a look down here, and the buying opportunity came at the first, I guess, support level, and bang, away she went. And that again, that's well into US session, that one, isn't it? So that's not the same. Or that wouldn't have been the German news anyway, I wouldn't have thought.
No, that wouldn't have been the German news. That may well have been the report that you read about the Fed.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Because we did see some dollar weakness, didn't we? I mean, the euro was boosted by the ZEW news, but I'd be very surprised if that was the only thing that was released that gave the euro the boost that it did. So it probably did have some help from that Fed announcement as well. And interesting, really, because the pound was stronger than the euro yesterday.
Well, that's no surprise.
No, well, and also there was, we got this this Proroguing of Parliament court case going on for the next day, actually. So we'll know tonight whether Boris Johnson, did illegally close down Parliament for his own political end.
Yeah. When's that?
That's now today. This is the second day, so we should get the announcement later tonight.
Wow, awesome. Just having a look at euro pound from yesterday.
Yeah.
And it started off in completely the opposite scenario.
Yeah.
Where the euro was rallying against the pound till it hit this support level or resistance level. I wonder what that was really all about, to be fair, because it's only the pound. Hang on a sec. What did the euro do? It's the same candle, isn't it, really, by the look of it? Candle, pound, hourly chart. Yeah, it's just dollar weakness at the same time. Yep, okay. I'm happy now.
Yeah, so we had a bit of dollar weakness. We obviously had that ZEW news. We got Brexit announcements from the pound from the UK as well, which is going to boost or devalue the pound, I think, over the course of the next session or two. So there's a few things really going on.
What news have we just had?
We're waiting for CPI.
Okay, so that's an interesting 30-minute candle on euro pound. Are you seeing euro pound on my chart?
Yes.
Yes. That's an interesting candle.
Yeah, I think we had some. News from Germany. It's not printed on Forex Factory, but I think we had some news from Germany about car sales. But why wouldn't that be on there? Is what I don't understand.
Nor do I. Anyway, going back to the point, I suppose, and the pound. The pound in these days is very, very tough to time, and timing is everything, of course. If you're taking positions, then I don't think it's that tough, and certainly at the moment it's looking like it's rally, consolidate, rally, retrace, and we're coming off pretty much levels that we'd expect to come off. Daily pivot here, weekly pivot here, we dip below it, weekly pivot again. Here we are at the daily pivot. Do we trade it long here? Do we continue that scenario and that cycle? I always find it very, very difficult to trade into strong resistance without some sort of profit in the bank. And that resistance level is pretty much right there. And it's bang on 125. That's a very, very, very key figure for pound US dollar. So do I want to trade back into that? And the answer is going to always be no, I don't. But wouldn't surprise me in the least if the cycle continues and away we go. Big reversal bar there. I think I'd rather see, and the top of this channel, it keeps looking like it's false breaking. And for the second time, and what happened last time we broke back, retested it, went a small distance and then rallied again. This was, of course, yesterday and the dollar weakness. Why does the pound rally at the moment apart from dollar weakness is a great question. Ash has probably got better fundamental idea of that than I do technically, except to say that the pound is very, very cheap. And, you know, we've been saying that for a long, long time. But rather than go long here, I'd be looking very much for a short, to be fair. And I don't know that that's the point I want to go short off, but maybe it is. So maybe we come back and retest 125, consolidate a little bit, then dive underneath the daily pivot, retest the confluence area. And I think if I saw that, I'd have to go short. Where to? Only to here. I just want to trade to support and resistance at the moment. I call this burglar trading. And it's kind of because I want to trade break-ins rather than breakouts.
I like that.
I think, and I think this is breaking in to the range rather than breaking out of the range. We do have big news coming up, as I said, or as we know. And I think that's probably, you know, my MO, and always has been. Once I see big news coming up, I tend to think resistance is going to hold, support is going to hold. So why wouldn't you trade off the top to the bottom? And that's pretty much where I'm at, mate. So I'll be looking for a false break off this trade line, or even just a lower high here. You know, any reversal bar here, backing this one up, may even finish up head and shoulders at some stage. Who knows? But I think that's where I'm at with the pound. Yes, I'm a bull, but at the moment I don't want to trade this long until we've had maybe a deeper retracement back to the bottom of this channel.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty nice call, and that CPI data may actually make a difference on that. But
well, there you go. Well, you've got that as well. You know, that could change everything I've just said.
Yeah, and it's a little bit tricky, obviously, because this parliamentary suspension is big news, and CPI may make no difference at all today. It might be all about this parliamentary suspension. Just a quick kind of rundown of that. So the row over the legality of Boris Johnson's decision to suspend Parliament will return to the Supreme Court later for a second day. The PM suspended or prorogued Parliament for 5 weeks earlier this month, saying he wanted a Queen's speech to outline his policies. Now, that means that he has lied to the Queen if they find him guilty. But critics say Mr. Johnson was instead trying to stop the scrutiny of MPs in the run-up to Brexit. 2 cases about the prorogation are now being appealed in the court during the first day of the hearing on Tuesday. Lord Panic QC for the businesswoman Gina Miller and other campaiggners.
Did you say Lord Panic?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a name for a judge.
Yeah, do you know what? I love these names when they kind of do you know the guy that played the Hulk? Do you know his name is I can't remember his first name, but it's
the original one or
no, the most recent.
No,
his name is Mark Ruffalo. And
I remember the Hulk. No, I'm thinking of the green dude. Was that the Hulk?
That is the Hulk.
Right. That was Lou Ferrigno back in the day.
Lou Ferrigno, yes, it was. Yes, yeah. It was. The new guy is a guy called Mark Ruffalo, and he's just Ruffalo. One letter away from being a Gruffalo, which is a shame.
Buffalo as well.
So, but I love it when these names work out. Yeah, so Lord Panic.
Yeah, pretty cool.
The QC for the businesswoman Gina Miller and the campaigners against the Prime Minister's move said the suspension had been done to silence MPs ahead of Brexit and was an unlawful abuse of power. But the government lawyer, Lord Keane, QC, said the PM had been entitled to act as he did, and the issue was not one for the courts, which is really the kind of the argument. You know, should courts get involved in politics? Now, what will happen next? The court is due to begin sitting at 10:30 BST today, so in about 2 hours. And it will start with 2.5 hours of arguments from the government's representatives, Sir James Eddy QC, against the appeal by Miss Miller's team, who dispute the English court's ruling. Then, after lunch, Aidan O'Neill QC will take 2 hours of arguments on behalf of the Scottish challengers to prorogation and against the appeal made by the government on Tuesday to overturn the ruling from Edinburgh. Now, what's interesting about this is that Gina Miller has got form when it comes down to winning Brexit court rulings, because she was somebody that she I think got certain papers released about Brexit. So she's very good at this stuff. Now on day one, kind of boring. We don't need to know any of that. The afternoon. That kind of does wrap it up. So the final little bit is Lady Hale, President of the Supreme Court, stressed the landmark case would have no bearing on the timing of Brexit. She said she and her 10 colleagues would endeavour to address the serious, difficult questions of law raised by the case, but would not determine wider political questions relating to the Brexit process. So we're probably going to see this continue. If the Prime Minister loses, this may well go in another direction. We don't know, but I do find this stuff fascinating, because Boris Johnson's poll rating, if anything, has got stronger rather than weaker, and I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. I hear enough people tell me how much they like Boris Johnson, and I understand the charisma that they are, I suppose, buying into. But I don't understand how you could back anyone, no matter how charismatic they are, that lied so blatantly for their own ends when they are leading the country. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Don't get me wrong, I find him very entertaining. He's a colourful character, and quite brilliant to have as part of the daily kind of media wrangling that goes on. So he does give us some light relief in some respects, but what he does is not light in any respects whatsoever, considering he's the Prime Minister. So I find it kind of peculiar that people would still be backing Boris Johnson, and I suppose this just goes to show the strong feeling that some people have about Brexit. That they want it so desperately that they will accept anything. And there's two. The Liberal Democrats have come out, and they've only got 18 MPs out of a 350 seating MPs in the House of Parliament, and they have come out and said that they will not only campaign for a second referendum to stay in, but if they are elected in government, they're just going to tear up Article 50 altogether and just say, we're staying in. That's that. And we've also got David Cameron, the leader that saw us through Brexit. His book is coming out, and there's been some fairly damning interviews that he has done on against the Leave side, i.e. Michael Gove and Boris Johnson as well. But nothing seems to be destroying their rating right now, mate, which I find surprising and a little bit concerning, because that suggests to me that Brexit probably is going ahead one way or the other.
Mate, the most amazing thing for me is that now, are we really 3 years down the track? Or are we 2.5?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, 2016.
Yeah, shit. Okay, so we are 3 years down the track.
Yeah.
And it's probably less clear than it was from day one, still.
Yeah.
And that's just something that astounds me.
Yeah.
After all this time, all this wrangling and toing and froing and wasting of pounds, taking so much time over it. What else has happened in the country apart from Brexit?
Well, the sad thing is,
I know the bureaucrats still run it, but there's really no big ticket things that have, the best of my knowledge anyway, you certainly don't hear about them.
No.
That have been, discussed over the table that they should have been discussed over, because it's all about Brexit.
The sad fact is that it's just a bad idea. It's just a bad idea, and nobody well, very few really think is a good idea. Very few. The ERG, the European Research Group, they're the only ones, and they are the faction of the Conservative Party that really made this happen in the first place. But not even Boris Johnson thinks it's a good idea, and we know this because of the conversations that have been published that he has had. So we know that Boris Johnson's reasoning behind Brexit is to do with political gains, which is sad. Very, very quickly, before we go, this is a trade. You know, if people want to trade the FTSE before we go, I talked about the pop and pop to the
We're
upside.
on my screen, mate, so you will need to.
Are we back on mine now?
Yours.
We're on mine?
Can't see it on here.
Okay.
Yes, now I can.
Okay, great. So we talked about this potentially happening, and making sure that I've got. Here we go. Yeah. So what we were looking for was the pop to the upside, pop to the downside, and then a pop to the upside. Now we're looking at an hourly chart, so that's what it looked like it could happen. But let's just flip it to the 15, because this is really now going on the 15, and I think that this is probably likely to happen on the 15 here instead, where we do pop it up from here and then pop down. And maybe pop back up again, you know, before the Fed. But that would be my personal stance. Probably want to wait maybe for some sort of reversal bar here. Now these lines are going to go again, but what the key thing is that we're focusing on the weekly pivot. So we'd want this weekly pivot to kind of give us the area of resistance. So we're looking at that, and because it hasn't yet touched that, and we haven't yet even got close to closing the gap which exists here, then I still think that we've got some upside in us before we start to collapse even further. So let's look to see if we get some sort of reversal bar here, whether it's on the 15 or the 5, and then there'll be a trade to the upside and with stops at the lows. So yeah,
Happy days.
Yeah, that will be it. I think from my side, I'm going to just clear these drawings and have a look at this on a 5-minute chart just to see what it looks like. There you go. Looks pretty good here to me.
Cool.
There we go. So that's that, mate. And we will be back again tomorrow. And this time we will be able to discuss the Jerome Powell thing. I'm fascinated to see how your Aussie yen trade turns out and see if we can get some a real dive to the downside.
Real downside, yeah.
Yeah, but what a great trade you've given us this morning. Really, you know, kind of continuing with our record, which I quite like. You know, we obviously couldn't provide anything yesterday, but we had a winning trade on Monday, and now we've had a winning trade today. So a decent week for anybody that's kind of trading with us. You would have had to be in at 5 to 8, but Jeff did call that live on air, which if you want to go back and watch the recordings, you will see. And we'll be back tomorrow to see if we can do the same thing. And maybe we're going to get a live trade on air as well. Well, not on air, but a calling of a trade here with the FTSE. So again, you're looking for some reversal here, which is just starting to come into play with this 5-minute chart. And there is a trade to the upside. So trading up to the weekly pivot. And for that, mate, that will be it. We'll be back tomorrow, same trade time, same trade channel.
At what time?
5 to 8.
Don't you be late, because that's a date.
Awesome stuff. All right, dude. See you later.
Have a good one.